Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World with me, John Jordan. So in this video, I'm going to have a look at what's been going on in terms of VCs and investment into the blockchain game sector, which is, I'm taking that as a fairly broad sector. That's blockchain games, obviously metaverse stuff, some NFT stuff as well, and obviously some blockchain ecosystem stuff. So that's the data I'm looking at. Try to be as consistent as possible. It's pretty difficult. Some of this data is some of the traditional VC stuff is fairly easy to get. Some of the more blockchain IDO NFT stuff is less easy to get, and so probably missing out some of that more blockchainy type stuff. But anyway, so this is what we've got. I've taken the data. This is since September 2021, so it's sort of pretty good chunk of months. And on the vertical scale is the amount of money invested into the sector, and obviously months along the bottom. So we also have two colors. So in blue we have what I'm calling sort of traditional VC money. So that's basically traditional VCs, or which can be also just sort of pure crypto VCs, but they tend to be more traditional. They're raising money probably in fiat currencies from their own investors called LPs, and then they're investing that into probably some token stuff, but a lot of it will be sort of investing into equity of companies. The red stuff here is IDOs or NFT sales. So this is much more crypto sort of heavy. So this is in some cases public crypto sales. So people just sort of rocking up to a launch pad or through sort of Binance, all that sort of stuff. So this is much more sort of the crypto side of things. As we can see in general, most of the money, like 90% of the money, has come from traditional VCs. That's really where a lot of it's happening. There's been some big chunks. Some particular projects that have done really well in terms of sort of public raises. So I guess Yuga Labs, the Bored Ape people, I never pronounced it that right. So they did their big NFT sale for Other Deeds, their metaverse play. So that's this big red sort of chunk here. And so a lot of these other ones are just sort of quite small, small, a few millions raised over time. So this is the broad picture of what we get here. So as you can see, from month to month, it's sort of fairly up and down. Often in terms of these, particularly these VC funding rounds in blue, when the company announces it's raised money is not necessarily when it did raise money. So normally within a couple of months, but I've seen examples where people might wait 6 months for various reasons to announce that they raised money. So we have to be a little bit careful about announcements and what does that actually mean today. So anyway, so we have, one good example here actually is December. So you can see December was really small in terms of VC funding. And why is that? Well, I would hazard the guess that a lot of people in December are on holiday. So particularly if a lot of lawyers are on holiday, a lot of VCs are sort of skiing somewhere, then stuff isn't announced and people just go, I'm not going to announce that in December. I'll wait till January. So I think that sort of stuff happens. We can see sort of January is actually pretty big. This is value, so this is the amount of money going in. So particularly, you would say some of the bigger deals maybe were signed in October or December, November or December, but not announced till January. So the big one there would have been OpenSea raised $300 million on its Series C. I've no idea when that money actually changed hands or when the stuff was actually signed, but I imagine it could have been in December, but they didn't announce it till early January. So in terms of 2022, we've seen 3 months over $500 million. June was lower. June was the lowest month in 2022. Not the lowest month we've got here, so it's bigger than October 2021 and December 2021. And it's not that much smaller than April. So I know a lot of people are saying, we've seen this sort of crypto winter happening, and obviously macroeconomic conditions, and everyone's a little bit uncertain about what's going on, and obviously tech stocks are also down. So we may be seeing a little bit of that, but I think it's a bit too soon to say that this is definitely the reason it's happening. People, we have this thing, is it correlation or causation? Correlation is not causation. So it looks like it could be true, but we don't really know at the moment. So it's not jumped to too many conclusions. Would be my view on that. Definitely we could say sort of VC is sort of the it's low for VC. It had a whole bunch of NFT stuff going on here. So Illuvium did $72 million on its land sale. So, but anyway, different things going on. Okay, so that's the basic lie of the land. What's been going on. Also, we should point out in sort of Q1, we had sort of 2.8 million, and then Q2 we have like 2.5. So you know, it's over 5.5 billion so far in 2022, which is obviously much bigger than 2021. There's not really much happened into sort of August, July last year. So at some point we would sort of expect that to sort of, you know, come down a little bit anyway. There's a lot of money's been put into this space already. But let's have a look and see exactly what sort of deals we are getting. So this is the number of deals by the stage. Let's pull that out. Okay. So obviously this is the same data, so we sort of see the same trends. Actually, no, it's not the same data. Sorry, I take that back. So this is the number of deals. So this is how many deals have been announced, and this is the colours are the stage. So in traditional VC circles, you'd have like maybe a pre-seed stage, and then a seed stage, then a Series A, Series B, Series C. Might have Series D, Series E, but that's sort of the structure. And then we have these sort of more blockchain-y things. So we have like obviously NFT sales and token sales. We have sort of ecosystem raises. So that's people raising money sort of for blockchains. And then strategic sort of rounds where it's sort of maybe sort of big crypto companies like Binance or FTX or some of these sort of some blockchains. They may be investing sort of just sort of on their own, or maybe doing grant structures or things like that. So those strategic people could also invest in A, B, and C rounds and seed rounds. They certainly do that, but we have this other thing which I've labelled sort of strategic rounds. So in terms of the this is the number of deals. So we can see here the big colour is blue. That just means there's loads of seed, and actually I've included pre-seed in that. There's loads of seed rounds, which is all what you expect. You know, there's going to be more seed rounds. Seed rounds, you know, whatever, $1 million to $2 million, so $5 million maybe. But they're pretty small, and you're going to have lots of companies in this sort of new emerging market getting sort of seed investment, and a whole bunch of them will sort of go bust before they get to do a Series A, because they just, you know, the company will fall apart. They won't get what we call product market fit. The sort of game they're working on or the product they're working on just won't people won't be interested, so they won't go to the next stage. So over time, you have a lot of seed rounds, you have fewer A rounds, fewer B rounds, you know, fewer C rounds. So that's no surprise. One interesting thing actually with sort of this sector is some companies can go through seed, Series A, Series B, Series C fairly quickly. So, you know, a company like OpenSea did its seed round 2018, but then did its Series A, Series B, and Series C all within a year. So the companies that are really taking off can, in crypto at least, can sort of go through these these sort of processes much quicker, I think, than you would do even in the tech field. But most of the money has gone into seed companies, or most of the deals have been seed deals. You know, we're starting to get some Series A's now, but we'd expect sort of Series B, Series C. You know, it's probably still a bit of a way off given where we are in the you know, fairly early in the sector. So next up, we're looking at the value by stage. So just quickly refresh. So this is what the graph looked like: number of deals by stage. So this is how many deals there were. Now this is the value, and we can see the color scheme has changed quite a lot. So we have dollars on the vertical scale. Obviously, this is harking back to the first graph we looked at in terms of how these trends are happening. So June, fairly small. And there is some sort of rounding errors here because some deals are not very clear what stage they fit into. So there is, just bear that in mind. But what we see here is what we saw on the previous slide was there's loads of seed rounds going in. But if you look at the value, seed rounds very small. So what with seed rounds, what you'd expect, no surprise there. There's loads of seed rounds happening. They're by far the biggest sort of raising stage, but they're very small amounts. Obviously, as these companies go from seed to A, B, C, whatever, the money goes up, because if you've proven to some degree in your Series A round that you can build a product and people like it, or you know, you'll get everyone very excited about your game, then you can do an A round that will be pretty big, and then if you can prove that out, you can do a B round that's even bigger. So what we've got here, we've got some really big, certainly B rounds. So back in September, Sorare, the fantasy soccer game, did $680 million B round, which followed on from its 50 million A round fairly quickly. And then we have Forte, this massive, almost $750 million B round again. So these two really big B rounds into 2022 for these companies that people really thought had got scale. We'll see whether they did or not. We have, in June we have a fairly big round here. So this is this B round is $130 million by Magic Eden, which is the Solana, the biggest NFT marketplace on Solana by miles. So there's a whole bunch of ones out there. OpenSea now supports Solana, but all the activity is really happening on Magic Eden. So they did a typical thing where they did their A round in March, about $30 million A round, and then they've gone to $130 million for their B round very quickly. So, we've got some A rounds going on. So A rounds, in this case, even though they're a much smaller number of them, are value-wise as big as all the series, all the seed rounds. And then we have some of these other weird colors coming in. So we have some big strategic rounds coming in here. We have some big ecosystem rounds. So the Flow, Dapper Labs raised $725 million for its Flow blockchain. So that's gone into an ecosystem. We have the NFT stuff going on here with Yuga Labs, sorry, I should say, and other deeds. It's metaverse play. So we can just see, again, not a great surprise. Loads of seed rounds. They're not really worth very much. The big money is sort of coming, certainly on the sort of B's and C's. So we have some big sort of purple bits here for C rounds, and also, which is very blockchain. These big sort of ecosystem raises and these sort of strategic raises, which are sort of more opportunistic. So now let's look at the type of deal. So the sort of the category, I suppose, the sector category. So we have in blue, we have the games. So this is people making blockchain games, raising money. So that's the majority of the market. We have some community stuff. This is stuff like guilds, some other sort of variations on community. So I should say these are my definitions. So I've tried to put things holistically together. We have metaverse stuff. So this would be stuff that is, obviously most metaverses have sort of game elements, but they're sort of bigger than games. So this would be, projects like the Sandbox, that sort of stuff, other deeds, things like that. Remember, this is the number of deals. We have platforms, which are, again, can be games, but tend to be things that allow sort of multiple products to be grouped together. And then we have sort of other, which is sort of everything else. So we have tools, payment systems, marketplaces. So that would include the Magic Eden deal I spoke about. And then we've got sort of blockchain. So this is more like the people raising money specifically for sort of blockchains and people raising ecosystem funds. So as with the seed funds, if we think about it from that term, the blockchain sector in terms of funding at the moment is mainly companies making blockchain games raising seed rounds. That's the blue. The blue's everywhere in terms of number of deals. Obviously, it's going to change when we look at the value. Okay, so same thing, deal value by type. So remember games. So some games have raised a lot. So Sorare, I mentioned them before, raised a ton. So it's not like there's no money sort of going into games, and actually some of the bigger games are raising, on their Series A's are raising, a bunch of money. So it's not like it's nothing there. But in general, investors are more interested in things that have a sort of deeper sort of technical and deeper sort of scaling ability. So we see here in 4 of these months, metaverse pretty big. So a whole bunch of metaverse stuff going on, including other deeds, as we said before. So just people really interested in sort of metaverse stuff, and that's more complex. To build a metaverse is more complex than to build a game. Takes longer, and if you think your metaverse is going to be successful, then you're going to have a bigger upside, I suppose. We have some platform stuff. So this big green lump here is Forte raising money for its blockchain gaming platform. We do have some of the tool stuff sort of can work. So this is this big orange bit here is OpenSea raising its $300 million Series C round. This one here is Magic Eden raising its $130 million B round. So marketplaces in particular, people are happy to invest in marketplaces. Not so much on the other sort of tool stuff. Blockchain, again, if you have these ecosystem funds coming in, they can raise, they sort of require larger capital inflows. because they are doing these sort of ecosystem funds, and sort of investors like that sort of you know, if I'm investing in the next Ethereum, that's sort of pretty cool on the upside. Platform stuff, sort of not so much actually, sort of interesting. I was a bit surprised the platform stuff is really not getting a lot of investment. Community, sort of up and down. Again, sort of guilds are fairly, I mean, this guilds was more at the start of the year and December. There is some stuff going on around community, clearly. Community is a big part of this sort of stuff, but generally not raising enormous sums of money from community or community projects at the moment, at least. Okay, so finally, let's look at location. So again, this can be a bit difficult in crypto to know where these companies are located. So I've sort of done my best, public information and a bit of sort of research. Yeah, some teams you just don't know. So, but what we see is blue is North America, mainly the US, bit in Canada. This is the number of deals. So you know, US is in. It's not the sort of them getting on for. It's the largest chunk. And in some months, you know, increasingly the majority of deals are in North America. In green, we have Europe and sort of Middle East. Actually, it's not. Yeah, it's in the Middle East. So I've been sort of fairly broad with sort of Europe and Middle East is sort of some stuff in Dubai. So yeah, that's sort of the Western Europe, Eastern Europe, UK. That's what. We are measuring there. So, you know, that sort of sector is doing pretty well in terms of number of deals. We have a bit in Australia and New Zealand, mainly Australia in yellow. We have some Latin American stuff, not very much, a bit of Brazilian stuff going on there. And then the other major thing after North America and Europe and Middle East is APAC. So I've broken APAC down, that's sort of Asia Pacific. We have India broken out separately, so this is sort of darker colour. So some deals happening now in India. And Philippines and Vietnam are broken out separately from APAC because just they are interesting to look at. And obviously Vietnam is big because of Sky Mavis, the developer of Axie Infinity. And Philippines is big because of YGG, the guild. So they're not, in terms of number of deals, not like an enormous number of deals, but compared to what you'd expect in terms of tech investment, those countries are doing pretty well. APEC stuff is actually mainly Hong Kong and Singapore, and that's mainly because that's where Chinese companies base themselves, because they can't base themselves in China anymore. So that's where the rest of that's happening. I mean, there's other stuff, obviously Japan, South Korea, stuff happening as well, but mainly Singapore and Hong Kong. Okay, final graph, deal value by location. So as ever, what we see is there is sort of one sort of dominant category, and in this case actually it is the category that is actually doing the most deals. So the US, North America is doing the most deals, and it is also getting the majority of the money. So certainly, you know, some months it's pretty much taking all the money. Again, to a degree, no surprise, because most of the VCs are based in America, Silicon Valley. So I mean, SoRare did very well for the green of Europe, but Europe, you know, was doing quite a lot of sort of deals, quite a lot of green in this graph, not so much in terms of money. So European companies tend to be doing seed rounds and not getting very much money, or not raising much money. Australia's doing pretty well, actually, compared to its deal structure. That's a lot to do with a Mutable X. What else we got? Latin America not doing very much. APEC is surprisingly small. So I was surprised about this. I thought it'd be more money in those APEC regions. I mean, it's not like there's nothing, but yeah, not that big. Some big stuff in India actually, around NFTs, and then some months we have sort of, you know, larger amounts in sort of Vietnam as well. So that's sort of Sky Mavis, and this one here in APEC was Animoca Brands raising investment fund. So that's yeah. So that's what we got going on there. So I think it's pretty interesting. As I say, you don't want to be too focused on what's happening on a month basis. I think there's just a lot of stuff changing every month. It really depends on sort of what deals are going through. It's very lumpy. It's still not a massive market. You know, so we'll wait to see what happens with July. July is probably going to be a quieter month anyway, because it's the holidays and because of macroeconomic conditions. So I wouldn't just because July is going to be lower than June probably. I wouldn't say that's going to be sort of how the year's going to necessarily pan out. Could be a whole bunch of stuff that's being signed in July, and August is going to be announced in September. So September will look particularly big, but so we'll wait and see. But anyway, I think this sort of stuff's interesting. If you like this, please subscribe to the channel. See you again.